My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a principal consultant for Microsoft Consulting Services, and I've been working with SharePoint apps for a few years already, actually. And with me in the call is Bert Janssen. Bert.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Bert Janssen. I'm a senior consultant in Microsoft Consulting Services Belgium, and just like Vesa, I'm pretty deep into all of the SharePoint things, including app development.
Good. And today it's good to have you actually on the call. It's good to see that there's so many people actually joining, which is great. And the topic is site provisioning techniques with SharePoint apps. So what we're going to do is have a look on the provisioning techniques in a SharePoint and how we can transform the existing, or let's say older models, to use the SharePoint app technology, which is the new model within the SharePoint, how we should be implementing certain scenarios. So the whole point is that we actually think about, or well, give you the understanding of different provisioning options and their advantages and disadvantages. The key point is that when to use and what. So to understand, for example, the impact of certain technologies and what is the advantages with the SharePoint app model. We're going to do actually 3 different demos and to demonstrate some of these techniques. Since we do have only 1 hour, we're not going to actually deep dive on the code. We're going to rather show how things actually work and maybe have a quick look on the code, but just to explain the key topics. But this is not a live coding session. So we're going to have for quite a few slides, and let's talk about the different techniques. So let's get started. So let's actually start with the introduction on the site provisioning patterns. So what are those different options what we have in a SharePoint 2013? So we also will concentrate on SharePoint 2013. And this is not only cloud, so we're going to concentrate on the on-prem perspective as well. So I'm going to pinpoint then what's going to be supported in the cloud and what's not going to be supported in the cloud. And our demos are actually pretty interesting related on that one as well. But let's talk about those when we get to the demos. So introduction to the site provisioning patterns. Let's start by looking into this kind of a classic options like what we have. Many of you are developers. There's some familiar names on the list, and I know that you guys are pretty familiar of development of SharePoint. One of the classic things, how do we actually modify SharePoint site provisioning? How do we make sure that, for example, in the theme site we have the right content types or we have the right branding, is the feature stapling. And the feature stapling is something where we essentially have a classic full source code feature which we staple into the existing site definition. So we basically say for SharePoint that whenever you create a theme site, activate this other feature as well. The key challenge, however, with the feature stapling is that we can only extend existing site definitions. So we cannot actually bring new options available using the feature stapling. So it's more about how do we adjust theme sites, how do we adjust my sites. And in the Office 365 side, which is, well, we need to face it that it's also the future of many of our customers, this feature stapling is only available in the site collection scope. So we're unable to, for example, achieve personal OneDrive for business branding using the feature stapling, which is the classic example for feature stapling in the SharePoint. The following option, the kind of a classical option, is the site definition provisioning process. So the site definitions is something which we actually had already in 2003, or it's a really old technique. And it gives us the benefit that we're able to actually introduce new options for the UI. So from an end user perspective, you're able to then go and click a new site option, and you have a new option available in the create site thing. So it's a pretty much gives us the same capabilities as for the out-of-box site definitions. Well, you need to understand the XMLs, but you can understand that pretty fast. The challenge is, however, with the site definition is that if you choose to do site definitions, you will be responsible of the upgrading of that particular site, which has been created using the custom site definition. So it has a long-term impact on your deployment. Whenever we do a major version upgrade. Major version means from 2010 to 2013 and so on. So you definitely want to avoid site definitions because we have an alternative, better options. The site definitions cannot be are not supported in Office 365. They never will be because they are deployed in a farm level. So that technique is kind of silly. We are unable to target individual web applications or site collections even. Well, there are certain techniques, but let's not go to the insides of the solution. It's not a valuable option. Something what we introduced in 2010 was then the web template provisioning process. So the web template is something which is trying to, in 2010, it was the way we tackled those challenges with the site definition. So we were able to actually introduce those new site options for the end users so that you're able to create a new theme site, and it has the branding, it has the additional document libraries, it has whatever is needed based on the business requirement. But you were not deploying that in a farm level, and you didn't actually have an impact from a following, let's say, massive impact from a versioning perspective. The good thing about the web templates is that they are fully supported in Office 365 because the web template technique, well, whenever you, as an example, we use the web template technique whenever you save site as a template. So that is a supported option in the Office 365. There is, however, a technical downside of using the web template. Whenever we create a web template, we actually take a dependency on that particular time space or time format or that date and time. Whatever changes we introduce in the Office 365 immediately after are not going to be actually part of that web template. So as an example, when we create a, let's say, a custom theme site using a web template technique, if you're familiar with web template technique, you take an on-it XML of an existing theme site, and then you create that to be a web template. We do, however, all the time improve those services, what we actually have in the Office 365, or we release a new stuff part of the cumulative patches. It means that your web template should have to follow up on those changes. And that's going to then have a significant maintenance challenge if we choose to use the web template technique. It's a valid option, but we need to understand the impact. If we're looking on the other options, we obviously always have the full server-side option available, which is then the model where we write full trust code. This is pretty typical for larger global enterprises. We write some sort of a self-service and polished site collection creation opportunity for the end users. There could be a workflow, there could be a time jobs associated to this one. So the end user has to set some properties and request the site collection, and then whatever approver approves the site collection request, the actual site collection is created. There might be 80 creations and so on attached on this one. The challenge of this model as such, if you think about full trust code inside of the SharePoint farm, is that that's not supported in Office 365. And it always requires full trust code. And the full trust code has the downside that whenever we need to do maintenance for the full trust code, we need to recycle our IIS application pools, which means always downtime. So that's not necessarily optimal situation for the SharePoint end users that we need to always schedule maintenance. Well, it's not optimal for the maintenance people either, because then usually they need to work up for the weekends and so on. And it's complex to maintain, to set up and maintain. Well, it's always relative who's actually implementing that, but it's still not a viable option if we want to align with the Office 365 and the SharePoint feature within our custom implementation. The one thing what we really want to be clear is that the SharePoint app model, or the cloud app model, or whatever we want to call it, nowadays we call it SharePoint app model, it's not only pattern for cloud. It's also a pattern and a recommended approach for on-premises, because we can actually take advantage of the app patterns and app models in the on-premises as well for the benefit of the deployment. There are changes, and yes, that changes our thinking, how we implement stuff, but there are also major benefits on using the SharePoint app model. Obviously, in the end, it's up to you and the customer to choose. Do we want to go to the old, let's say, the full trust code way, which will then have a long-term impact on the particular deployment, or do we want to go to the SharePoint app way, which is the recommended option and aligned with the product roadmap? The key point, the question is that what if we could actually use the same model for on-premises and in the cloud? So we don't want to think as a developer, I'm personally a developer as well, I don't want to think a cloud as an exception. Oh, this particular customer goes to the cloud, so therefore I need to implement my stuff slightly differently. That's not what actually we want to do. our ideal world obviously would be that we implement once, and then it's going to run in any deployment in any side of the, let's say, the stack. It's going to it's fully supported in the cloud. I'm able to execute that on there, but just as well, I can take the same code and run it in the on-prem. So I don't need to think about the cloud as an exception, and that's where we want to actually go. And that's where we call then, well, we call the model as a remote provisioning for the site provisioning techniques. Something what I talked about pretty heavily at some point as well. The model is that where we essentially drive the creation of the sites and the templates what we offer for the end users using the provider-hosted app side. So all of the configuration and the creation of the site is going to actually happen from the provider-hosted app, which is actually not running in the SharePoint. So we're able to completely fulfill the requirements. Well, we've already done that for many of our global customers, that we've gone away from the web templates and site definitions, and we actually implement the templating system using this provider-hosted app pattern. And the provider-hosted is then actually calling, using the client-side object model and the RESTful interfaces to really create the out-of-the-box theme site and then modify that based on the settings, or to create an out-of-the-box publishing site and modify that based on the settings using the client-side object model APIs. And that's actually a really cool technique, and we have a lot of IP available for you to start with. Many times when we introduce this technique the reason why we want to actually do that, before we go to that background information, the reason why we want to do that is that already right now, with the SharePoint 2013 timeframe or the release, we have actually released 200 new updates to the Office 365. And we have actually released a lot of updates as part of the April CU and as part of the other CUs to the on-prem as well. So we want to make sure that all of your customizations, well, regardless of the updates what we introduced, or regardless of the major releases what will happen, we already announced the SharePoint 2015 in SPC, your code will work. Due to backward compatible APIs, and due to the fact that you actually don't set your code running in the SharePoint, you use this disconnected or loosely coupled SharePoint customization model. In the past, for many of our customers, it was a extremely painful thing that whenever we released a major version, they were forced to invest hundreds and thousands of dollars in a worst case scenario for upgrading the code and make it work in the latest version. Now, that's exactly what we want to tackle with this one. We want to make sure that the code and the business logic and the app and the provisioning, as an example, works completely fine within the whatever newer version we actually release within the cloud or within the on-prem. And that's where the SharePoint app model is actually helping us a lot. And that's going to obviously drive the cost models. And we, as a developer, it's not about the fact that, okay, then we eat up your upgrading projects. Well, in some sense, yes, but those are actually really boring projects. You just make the same thing usually work on the newer version. What we can do with the app world is that we are able to concentrate on the business logic and truly on enhancing the functionalities what we want to provide for the end users, which is really awesome thing. Now, first time what I saw actually the SharePoint app model introduced for me, and somebody was saying that you should be going to the SharePoint app world and your stuff is running in Windows Azure or outside of the SharePoint. I was like, no, that's not for me. So I've been there. And it takes a while to actually approve the reality, so to say, that's in quote unquote. But this is where the product roadmap and the service roadmap is heading. So all of our investments on the development side are going to actually be done on the app and the app side. We've already proven the pattern with many of our global customers. We have customers who were using a full trust code and have been now fully appified, so to say. So their FTC full trust code have been converted to app world, and they're now extremely happy about the benefits what they have now. So this is really the product roadmap. When do you want to then jump on the board? If you're already doing that, that's great. But it's good to actually get over that denial stage. It's a change, I know. I've been there as well. Good example being whenever somebody actually, when I came to Microsoft back in 2006, somebody told me, and I was forced to be the one who actually has to learn to do a feature framework and the solution structures, creating manifest XMLs, creating DDF files, and using MakeCap to compile the WSB packages. That was a really new thing. But still, I was able to learn that. And we are actually pretty much in the same situation right now. We need to understand and learn new way to do stuff. The classical challenge is when we think about the SharePoint history, somebody says to you, you need to learn to use Camel. If you're a new age SharePoint developer, well, not necessarily a right term, but structures, which we were forced to learn at some point. And it's actually a really good thing. We don't need to worry about those anymore. Because the whole point of the SharePoint app development is that if we do know the general web development, we're able to actually do also the SharePoint development. So we're trying to now consolidate the patterns inside of the Microsoft. So the SharePoint skill set, what is required for SharePoint, is not witchcraft. It's not something science. It's not special. It's going to use the same patterns. We're able to use the same advantages what we have in the .NET, on the upcoming Visual Studio, so ASP.NET, whatever we introduced in the .NET framework, we're able to take credit of those functionalities also in a SharePoint development. And that's a massive deal. As part of the SharePoint 2010, there was a lot of people complaining that why isn't SharePoint 2010 .NET Framework 4.0 compliant? Well, that's due to the development cycles of the product. Right now, when we do more about the services, especially if you do Office 365, the development cycles are much shorter, and we're able to introduce faster and faster add-ons. But at the same time, the development, you can do your development now using PHP. You can do the development using Java. You can do development using whatever platform you want. Or if you're, well, I'm always doing my stuff in .NET, but still, you're able to do that. So what we want to kind of emphasize is that this is really big change. This is a big change for any of the developers, and trust me, I know by my own hands and my heart that yes, it takes a while to learn the new model, but it's extremely beneficial. So we're able to then move on the align our skill set on where the product and where the service is also heading. So this is a big change. So we definitely encourage people to have a look, start showing the stuff. Let's concentrate on the demos. We promised 3 demos. We still have time for the demos. So that was more or less the introduction on things. So let's move on the demo side, and let's move on how do we actually make this happen in real life.
Yes, thanks, Vesa. So Vesa already talked to you about the remote provisioning pattern, and the next couple of slides, and mainly the next demo, I will explain you how this works and show you how it works. The demo that you will see is based on real customer code. So the same concepts that you will see in the demo have been applied for many customers already, and are also ready for you to be applied when you leave this call. Now, before diving into the demo, I have just 2 slides, so not that many. Little bit background. In the demo, you will see a provider-hosted SharePoint application. I want to quickly explain that for provider-hosted application, you have a provider part. So Vesa talked about .NET code or even Java code, PHP code, which is your provider code using the SharePoint APIs, and that's running on a provider. So the provider in here is the blue box. The code running in your provider communicates with SharePoint, and that can be either the host web, which is the website in which you have installed the application, your SharePoint app, or a dedicated app web. So certain SharePoint applications can have an app web as a kind of a dedicated site that they use to store additional data, configuration data, for example. So SharePoint is the green part, provider is the blue part. If you move to the next slide, you will see that in our demo, that the blue part is Windows Azure. So what you will see in demo is a SharePoint app written in .NET, ASP.NET, running on Windows Azure Cloud Services. The green part, the SharePoint part in the demo is Office 365. But this could also be your SharePoint on-premises for the green part, and for the blue part, an on-premises IS or something else. So pretty flexible. You need SharePoint and you need an app provider to host the app. In the demo, we will, step one, we will show you a site directory. Then from the site directory, the user will open up a custom form in which he or she can request a new site collection. That form that you will see is running in Windows Azure. Keep that in mind. When we hit the create button, we will put a message in a queue, in Azure queue, and there is a background worker role that will pick up messages from the queue and start processing. The final result will be a customized site. So we will start from a team site, STS #0, and standard out-of-the-box team site, and we will kind of rebuild it to a tailored Contoso team site. So let me we go to the demo now. Let me share my screen. Can someone type yes in the chat window when the screen is visible? So screen is loading. Can you guys see it? Yeah, okay, I got a confirmation. Great. So what you see here is a site collection running on SharePoint Online. Oops. Sorry, let me zoom in again. So you see the top, it's birthonline.sharepoint.com, which is my SharePoint Online Office 365 tenant. And in there I have a site directory, so a simple list showing site title, status, owner, etc. Now the interesting thing is the new site button. Now before I will hit the new site button, I will first show you the SharePoint app that I've installed. So I go to Site Contents. And you will see here there's a Contoso reference provisioning solution. This is the SharePoint app that we have deployed in this site. If I click on it, I will navigate to the SharePoint app. And you will see this app now in the full page experience. So it's actually a simple web form with a couple of fields running on Windows Azure. So you see here on top that the URL is prof.set1bertonline.info, which is actually a URL pointing to my Azure Cloud Services. Now this looks good, but it's a kind of a disconnected experience. This doesn't really blend into SharePoint, so I'm not going to use it like this. I'm going to go back to the site, and what I will do here is I have a little bit of JavaScript and HTML that will show the same page, the same SharePoint app page running inside the dialog. And at this point, this really looks like SharePoint. No one can see that this is not SharePoint. Huh? This is a nice blend in. So let's create a site. Office Online demo. We pick a template. In this case, we will create a Contoso collaboration site. The default owner, Kevin, is logged on, so he's already put in there. But my company happens to have a requirement that we need 2 site administrators. So let's pick myself, this one, and data classification. So data classification is a kind of a concept we introduced for this demo, and it will become more clear in the second part of the demo. But In this case, we will pick LBI, meaning low business impact data. And this data, this LBI data, it can be created in the cloud in SharePoint Online. So when I hit create, there will be a request put into an Azure queue, and the site directory will be updated. So you see that the site directory, an item was added, Office Ignite Online Demo, and status is provisioning. So at this point, an Azure worker role is creating a site collection in SharePoint Online and is applying all the changes. But this, my experience is that just creating a site collection alone in SharePoint Online takes around 5 minutes. Then we have to do some customization, so it will take around 7 minutes, 6 to 7 minutes. And I don't think you want to just wait for that to finish. So that's why I created one before in Online an hour ago. I'm going to show you that. So that's the result of this provisioning action. Open a new tab. So what you see here is the end result of the site provisioning action we did. So a site running on SharePoint Online, which has been customized. Obviously, you can see that the look and feel, the colors are different. So we applied a custom theme, custom branding to the site, which is a common ask for many customers. We actually updated the homepage, so we introduced some HTML text on the homepage. We added a new promoted links library and put the web art on the homepage. We removed the default documents web part. What else did we do? We added, for example, a custom page with, again, custom web parts on the page. So actually everything that you did in the past is possible and more, since you derive the provisioning from code. You can let your imagination go free, and you can design any type of site or make any kind of flexible design choice in there. So lots of things are possible. It's a very powerful model. Let me hit save on this one. So this was the first part of the demo, provisioning of a site in SharePoint Online. Still in provisioning status. When we come back for the second part, I assume the provisioning here will be done. So now I'm going to switch back to the slide to show you some more content, some more slides. So the slides are loading. Again, it might take a time for them to load, so let me know if everything is visible on screen again. Slides are up. Okay, thanks guys. So what you saw was a site collection creation in SharePoint Online. Now what if you would like to use the same app to also create site collections in on-premises? We talked about that the LBI sites, that they can be created in the cloud. But for example, your customer might have a requirement that certain confidential data, they still want that on premises. Or there are some legal requirements that make that certain data needs to be created on premises. So you put up an on-premises SharePoint farm, great, but then you need to provision a site in there. And what we'll show in demo 2 is that the same code, the same solution, which by the way is available for you, the same solution can be used to also create site collections on premises. Now you might think, how do you do this? Because your app is running in Azure and I have my SharePoint in on premises. How do I connect them together? And there some really great Azure magic comes in, which is called Service Bus. So it's point 2 here on the slides. We use Azure Service Bus to connect an on-premises site creation service with the app. So both the app connect to Azure Service Bus and the premises site creation service connect to the Azure Service Bus. So when then the app sends a message to create this site. It's picked up by Azure. Azure routes the message to the on-premises site creation service, and site creation continues. This is a very powerful model because it allows you to get to on-premises data or send data on-premises from cloud deployed apps. And this without having to expose the on-premises site to the outside. Often you see that you have to expose a service via reverse proxy to the outside world, to the internet, which is a pretty complicated, expensive process for companies, and they don't like to do this for security reasons, etc. So with Azure Service Bus, you all avoid that because both sites connect to the same point in the cloud, and then traffic is routed across. So let's show this in action. Demo number 2. And again, I'm gonna have to switch to my okay. It's loading now. Still loading. If it's visible for you guys, let me know. Oh. I have to try again. So second attempt, hope it works now. Still loading. Nope, screen sharing didn't start. Vesa, maybe you can, screen sharing isn't working right now. We can switch out a little bit. Can you do the your yes. demo, and then I'll come back later on. I will rejoin the session and I come back later on to do this second demo for the on-site site collection creation.
Sounds good. So I'm going to take over the presenter, and I'm going to do one demo, and hopefully the screen sharing works for that one properly, and then Bert is going to rejoin on the situation on back in here. I actually have only one slide, which is probably a good thing. So Bert is going to show the cloud-driven provisioning to on-prem as well, which is a extremely cool demo. I know that there are some network hiccups, which is when we need to be slow on clicking through the things. The one thing what I wanted to also show is that we can use the same pattern to brand and take care of your personal OneDrive for business sites in the cloud as well, or in the on-prem. So we can actually run the same code, this particular piece of code, in the on-prem or in the cloud, and it actually works in the same way. The OneDrive for business sites are slightly different than typical team sites or typical sites, because they are created when the user first time accesses the OneDrive for Business UI. You get a message which is saying, okay, we kind of provision you a OneDrive for Business site, and technically there's a timer job or a batch process behind this, on the server side, which is taking care of the OneDrive for Business site creation. And we don't have a, let's say, hook to add that any code to that exact creation, because that happens on server side, that happens outside of our reach. In 2010 or in 2007, we used feature stapling in a farm scope level to make sure that we apply a custom branding or whatever adjustments to the my site. OneDrive for Business is essentially the same thing as OneDrive. Well, it's much more than that, but technically it's the same site collection structure. So we need to take a slightly alternative route. What we need to do is to have a app running somewhere in our portal, which is taking care of applying the branding when user actually executes that part of the app. And what I mean with that one is that quite often you have the companies have a intranet front page, as an example. They quite often have an intranet front page where they, let's say, publish latest news, latest whatever information, and you can actually place this small app part on that front page of the intranet, which is then taking care of the provisioning of the branding for you. So let's have a look on that. So how it actually works, and crossing the fingers that the demo guards for sharing. I know for a fact that the code works, but let's say that it actually works, the sharing as well. So what we're going to do is that we're going to use this OneDrive for Business customizer, or a small app, which is available, by the way. All of the stuff what we're showing is available from the officeams.codeplex.com, which is the URL but Bert pasted in. Available from there, which is taking care of the branding setting for the OneDrive for Business. And I'm going to show what's the challenge, and then let's have a look how do we tackle the challenge. So I'm going to switch on sharing and crossing the fingers that the sharing starts properly. At least the connectivity bars are looking extremely good. And we have plenty of time. This is awesome. So we can wait for the loading to stop. And hopefully we will actually get the sharing of the start. In this situation, I usually blame hardware. So hopefully we can actually get the thing started, because then we can show. The one thing which we need to remember at the same time, actually these demos what we're showing here, well, slightly different demos, but still they're also available from the SharePoint conference recordings, which we did together at the SharePoint conference Las Vegas this March. Or the delivery was in the SharePoint conference in March with Bert. So we're able to access the video and see the demos from there as well. And I think we have the same challenge on my side, like on the Bert side, to actually show the sharing. So Bert, you actually consumed the one sharing part which was available, one of the third.
Slot, yeah.
What we could do
again, if you can't get in.
Yes. You can, please do try. I have a donut running on the icon.
Okay, fingers crossed. Yeah, I'm presenting, so that's good.
Good.
So then I think that's if you just drop the session and rejoin.
Yeah, I'll rejoin, so that's going to help on my side. Good, thanks.
Okay, let me know when you see the screen, guys. It's visible on my side, so it's sharing. Okay, I get a yes. So sorry for the kind of a strange demo order, but better this than no sharing. So a little recap. I talked about Azure Service Bus. This was a way to use the app running, the SharePoint app running in Windows Azure, to also create site collections in on-premises. So now let's show this nice little thing in action. So what I have here is still the same site with the same new site dialog. But I also need an on-premises part, of course. So in here I have a terminal server session open. And what you see here is the code. This is actually my on-premises SharePoint server. You see the central admin icons, etc. And I've opened up the provisioning solution that you can get from Office AMS, the same thing, and put a breakpoint over here in the class Contours to Collaboration. So we have a class, continuous collaboration, that is used to create the site collection, to do activate features, to add web parts on pages, etc. All of that is in this class. But I just put a breakpoint in there to show you that it really, really works. So the breakpoint is there, and then I'm going to start the listener. So I have a little console application that connects to Azure Service Bus and listens for messages. In a real production deployment, you would probably want this to be a Windows service, for example, something that always runs even when you're not logged onto the server. So everything is running. I'm going to switch back to my just a sec. So I'm back at my SharePoint screen. I'm going to click New Site. Office. On-prem demo. The same template is good. In this case, I'm going to pick HBI because HBI is the trigger that makes the app decide this needs to be either on-prem for HBI because it's sensitive data, or LBI, it would have been in the cloud. So this is the HBI creation. When I hit create, I'm going to quickly switch to my on-prem environment to see this in action. So create, and I switch here, and oops, it's so fast. What you see here is that we got a message in Service Bus, so that's good, and our breakpoint is hit. So the app in the cloud, running in Azure, triggers a breakpoint in my code running in on-premises. Great. So I'm not going to bore you by walking through all the steps. I'm just going to hit F5. And what it will do is it will create a site collection in on-premises doing the same configuration. So the same code base, the same look and feel, it's the same thing applies for on-prem and for online. So this is running right now. And I will refresh my site directory. You'll see that this is now in provisioning status, and the other one from before is available. Again, this goes pretty quick, actually, maybe a minute or so, but I have one readily available from before. That's this one. So let's open that one in a new tab. And let's zoom in a little bit. So you see here that the URL is SP2013 set1 bertonline.info, where bertonline.info is my on-premises SharePoint exposed to the outside in this case. But it's really the on-premises SharePoint 2013 environment that you saw in the terminal services window. The site that's being created is the same thing. You don't see the difference. It's the same. Same theme is applied. The same customizations have been applied. So it's from a usability point of view a very good thing, because you have a hybrid solution where you can have sites in online and on-prem with a unified site directory for the user. So for the user, this is very transparent, easy to use. And you see also this one is available right now. So with that, I'm concluding this demo, and I'm going to give back to the word back to Vesa. I hope that I rejoined. That's good. I hope that his sharing session does work now, Vesa.
Yeah, I'll start sharing. Yes, I'm going to steal your session, so let's see that sharing actually starts. Looks promising. And then I need some messages to confirm whenever whenever you guys see it. Good. At least one.
It's for me still a black screen. Okay. I see it also now.
Good.
Hey, Viz, a quick question. Well, these loads, I mean, what things are problematic with this approach? I mean, I know, for example, provisioning workflows is a pain. Is there anything else that you haven't been able to do with this approach?
Well, yes. So please do say yes whenever we get the full set of things. There are certain limitations right now in the CSOM. The classical limitation, especially for international level, is that, for example, the lack of language settings in the CSOM and lack of some alternative settings as well. If those are critical for your business case, then there are workarounds which we don't officially recommend, but you're able to do them. I would say anything when you administer settings in a site level, those are difficult. All of the basic settings like the creation of content types, site columns, adjusting the layouts, setting the master page for publishing sites or the normal sites, those are completely doable. So there are limitations still, but BG is working heavily on getting things done. I don't want to go to a specific route of that and that and that and that doesn't actually right now work. But there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of work being done already on these things. Somebody confirming that everything is fine for sharing, just double checking. Probably yes, most likely. So this is anyway, what we're seeing here is a kind of an imaginary Garage intranet. I'm using the Garage branding because we created that for one internal seminar again last January, but still it's a pretty nice looking theme. And the Garage is the Office Garage where you are able to follow up on, for example, the app development and all of that. So this is a typical intranet. So quite often for our customers, like many size of the customers, they have a default setting in the group policy which is saying that whenever you open up your browser, you land to this Garage intranet or that particular user's or company's intranet. In my particular case, if I click the OneDrive on the top, and I know that it takes actually quite a long time to refresh, but you should be able to see now the black Garage theme applied to myself because I will already run through the code and the session and the required things for my particular setting. So the challenge is for persons who the my side it's provisioned as a disconnected process, it as a timer job. So therefore, you don't have a hook where you can put your code to be executed. And here's my imaginary company's head of security, Kaiser Sosse. Who's a good example. So what the Kaiser Sosse has, he has a profile in the public OneDrive for Pro site. So there's a profile that there might be newsfeed discussions. But whenever the Kaiser, if he actually goes to the OneDrive, we're able to see the challenge. So by default, the OneDrive site is actually using the Office theme. So the classic blue and white and gray. Which is refreshing, and for a Finnish person, it's pretty much the colors of our flag, the blue and white. But still, it's people quite often say that that's, even though it's nice, we want to have a company branding applied. And how do we actually do that? Well, that's where the trick comes in. That's where you need to have a place to run the code where the people actually come to. And in our case, in many of the cases, we've actually placed that small piece of code to the front page of the intranet. So whenever the Kaiser Sosse actually opens up the browser, he will be most likely redirected by default to the front page of the intranet. And in here, we have actually the piece of code. And I know that it updates pretty slow on the wire, but right now I'm going to actually do some zooming, even though I know that it takes a while to update. So in the page, we have one hidden app part. In this particular case, it's actually visible, but quite often in the production, it's actually hidden. For a reason, it's now visible, so we're able to see that working on it as stamp. And this is actually an app part. App part which is executing a provider-hosted application which is actually located in the Windows Azure. And in the provider-hosted application, we're accessing particular users because we're able to use the particular user's identity. We're able to access particular users' OneDrive for Business site, and then we're able to push the required branding in to the Kaiser Sosse's personal my site or the OneDrive for Business site. They're changing the name so fast, I can't still keep up. Anyway, the OneDrive, so right now the code and the app part has been executed, and as said, it doesn't have to be visible. In this particular case, and by default with the Office AMS examples, it's visible, but in many cases, what we've done with our customers is that it's hidden, it's a 0 pixel wide and height app part, so nobody's actually able to see that it's executed. And now when the Kaiser Soze moves back on the OneDrive, we're able to see the branding applied dynamically to his OneDrive for Business site as well. We did actually release there's a small hiccup on this theme that the pop-up is white. So what we did with the Kaiser Soze's case, we applied the branding, and then we would actually added that yellow bar which is saying OneDrive for Business should not be used for storing high confidential file, check company policy. So we're able to do much more than just branding. We're able to make sure that some templates are there, some content types which probably you don't want to use with OneDrive Pro sites, but we're able to add this guidance and input for the end users using this same pattern. The alternative, actually, that there's some development on the OneDrive for Business API. So we did release a new API for Office 365, I think was it in March timeframe. So you're able to pre-create OneDrive for Business sites for the employees. But that has the challenge that quite often, actually, it's not every single employee who even use the OneDrive for Business site. So you don't necessarily want to pre-create the site for all of them, which might have then storage implications. So even though you can, but so that means that using this pattern, you can apply the branding in whenever the user actually arrives on the front of the intranet. Good. Hopefully you're able to now see the updated slides, updated screen. I'm going to switch back on the slides. And actually we're going to do a small summary and move into the Q&A section. So we're pretty much actually pretty well in the schedule, despite the technical issues, which is great. So whenever please let me know, I'm able to see the slide.
Yes, me too.
That doesn't mean a thing yet. Hopefully somebody else will confirm as well. No offense, Bert, but
no.
Good, thanks. Now I can say as well. Good. So a few things to kind of summarize. The key takeaways. So we're able to use the SP app patterns to provide flexibility for your provisioning model. So you're able to do, there's a lot of options, there's a lot of opportunities what you're able to do. And you're able to link this provisioning to on-prem using the service bus if you like to. The SP app patterns can be used across the cloud and on-prem. As a developer, what I want to do always is that I write one piece of code which is then usable across the deployments, and the app model is the one which is usable across the world, across the cloud and on-prem. So that's a really great pattern. So not think about the cloud as an exception. And the one thing what I wanted to kind of, I know that might be controversial, but stop using declarative options for the site provisioning. We have identified certain issues whenever we have multiple customers who are actually facing challenges related on, for example, site columns and content type provisioning using feature framework and element XML files. The declarative option, even though I know that MSDM is still kind of recommending that because we haven't had a time to explain this in MSDN and write it out, it's worthwhile to avoid that. So it's a better option to actually use code where possible, because then you create the stuff into the content database and you don't have a dependency on this external element XML file. Can we have a quick question? I'll come back on the questions pretty fast. The one thing we want to also mention is the Office AMS Codeplex.com. So Office AMS Codeplex.com is a Microsoft internal community-driven, right now, community-driven project where we give examples for you, so the external people. And these are examples, like all of the stuff what you've seen today is downloadable from there with guidance, with documentation and instructions how to set it up. And there's much, much actually more. So there's a lot of excellent samples and scenarios and business solutions already there, and we keep on actually releasing new ones into officeams.codeflex.com. We're also looking into opening up this project as an open source project at some point whenever we get the legal stuff sorted out, which will then open up the opportunities for the external field also to contribute on these samples for the benefit of the community. Good. Q&A. So now we are able to start answering the questions. I know that there were some questions already there, but Oscar is asking, can you have a on-prem ACS for closed environments? Slightly depends what we mean with closed environments, but on-prem the ACS, which is the low trust app authentication model, which works in Office 365, that requires that your on-premises server have an internet connectivity to the ACS within the Office 365. So to be able to do that, you need to have an internet connectivity from the server to the Office 365 ACS.
So there is no on-premises ACS? Huh?
There's no on-premises ACS, that is true.